Welcome back to the Deep Dive. I am so incredibly glad you've decided to spend some time with us today because we're about to peel back the layers on something that, well, it literally touches every single one of us, every single day. We're not just talking about numbers and charts today. We're getting into the very human side of our finances. Today, we're embarking on a deep dive into the psychology of money. And listen, if that sounds maybe a little intimidating, don't worry. We're going to make it utterly fascinating and hopefully incredibly relatable. We're exploring how our emotions, our past experiences, and those stubborn, ingrained biases fundamentally shape our financial lives. It's often not just about being smart with money. It's really about understanding how we behave with it.
Exactly. And what I find so endlessly fascinating in this field, behavioral economics, as it's often called, is how financial success for so many people really comes down to behavior and mindset, much more than just pure mathematical intelligence. Think of pioneers like Daniel Kahneman. He was a psychologist who actually won a Nobel Memorial Prize basically for flipping traditional economic theory on its head. He challenged that long-held belief that humans are always rational actors. He showed us that our brains, while, magnificent, aren't always logical when it comes to dollars and cents. They're often wonderfully, stubbornly human.
And I think we all have moments where we feel that human stubbornness, don't we? That little whisper of, ugh, I should be doing better with money. It reminds me of this universal, maybe slightly uncomfortable ritual I like to call the Sunday night wallet. You know the one, right? It's Sunday evening, the weekend is gently fading, maybe you're unwinding, and then that faint hum of Monday morning reality starts to creep in. You casually pull out your phone, open your banking app, the screen loads, that little circle spins, and then the number appears. And there it is, that quiet, familiar, kind of sinking feeling in your stomach. Your mind immediately starts to do the math, right? Flashing back to all those small, seemingly innocent purchases over the past 48 hours, that extra latte here, the book you had to have online, maybe the takeout because cooking just felt like climbing Everest. Individually, they felt harmless, maybe even deserved. But looking at that balance now, they stack up into this heavy, silent judgment. Where did it all go, you wonder, with a genuine sense of bewilderment? It's a feeling of lacking control, like your own choices feel like a mystery. And maybe there's a quiet, unsettling fear that you'll be in this exact same spot next Sunday. It's almost like you're battling a ghost.
That exact feeling, that moment of bewilderment, maybe with a little pinch of guilt or even frustration, that is truly the beating heart of the psychology of money. It's where our best intentions, our perfectly logical plans, completely diverge from our actual actions. And it's not a unique personal failing. It's a deeply common human experience. It vividly illustrates how powerfully emotion can, and often does, overrule logic when it comes to our finances. Recognizing that universal struggle is the very first, most crucial step toward understanding why we behave the way we do, and ultimately how we can maybe start to change it.
So, to really understand why this happens, why our logical brains so often get overruled, we need to take a quick, admittedly humorous, but also, I think, incredibly insightful trip back in time. I like to picture it as the caveman with a credit card. Imagine our ancient ancestors roaming the savannah maybe 200,000 years ago. Their brains, magnificent as they were, weren't really designed for Roth IRAs or long-term retirement planning, were they?
Not at all.
Their primary directives were immediate survival. Gathering resources, making sure the genes kept going. You see a bush full of ripe berries. You don't sit down for a complex cost-benefit analysis or ponder future foraging opportunities. Your primal brain screamed, eat them now. Get that immediate dopamine hit before another caveman does or before they rot. That instant gratification, that rapid acquisition of a resource felt good. And frankly, it was critical for survival back then.
And that ancient wiring, that, perfectly functional hardware from the savannah is still very much active in our modern brains. But today, the world has built this multi-trillion-dollar economy that is an absolute master at shortening the gap between want and have. Just think about it. Credit cards, one-click ordering, buy now, pay later services, they are all meticulously engineered to give you that immediate dopamine rush as quickly and frictionlessly as possible. They directly tap into that ancient impulse for instant gratification. So when you find yourself making an impulse purchase, it's not necessarily a personal moral failing. It's a very human one. It's your ancient brain trying to navigate a financial system that's incredibly sophisticated and, let's be honest, specifically designed to exploit its hard-coded impulses. The real struggle isn't to try and erase these deeply embedded impulses. That's probably a losing battle. The struggle is to understand them and then build systems, modern tools, if you will, that put your logical modern self back in command.
That distinction between our ancient impulses and modern systems is so key. And it makes you wonder, If we're all driven by these underlying human impulses, how do we make sense of the wildly different financial choices people make? What one person sees as absolutely rational, another might see as totally bewildering, maybe even crazy. But here's the fascinating truth. Nobody's truly crazy when it comes to money. It's almost always rooted in their unique story, isn't it? That's our first big idea. No one's crazy. The power of personal experience.
You've hit on such a profound point there. We often forget that our personal experience of the world, no matter how rich, diverse, or well-traveled we might think we are, actually represents a minuscule fraction of all global events. It's something like 0.0000001% of what has truly happened across time and cultures. It's tiny. Yet that tiny sliver of personal history forms a staggering 80% of how we perceive the world, and crucially for our discussion, how we perceive money. Some lessons, especially the financial ones, they genuinely need to be experienced to be understood deep down. They leave emotional scars, they build deep resilience, and they fundamentally alter our financial worldview in ways that just reading about them, well, it never could.
I was just thinking about an anecdote from the source material that really brings this to life. Imagine two friends, let's call them Alex and Ben. Both smart, both working hard. Alex grew up during a major financial crisis, watching firsthand as families around him, maybe even his own, lost everything. So for him, it makes perfect, undeniable sense to keep a significant portion, say 50% of his savings, in cold, hard cash or extremely liquid assets. His primary value is security.
Makes total sense from his perspective.
Right. Then there's Ben, who has only ever witnessed economic booms in his adult life. The market has always seemed to go up, up, up for him. So he feels completely comfortable investing 90% of his savings in stocks, aggressively chasing higher returns. From Ben's perspective, Alex's caution might seem totally irrational, right? But it's not crazy. It's deeply logically rooted in Alex's very real, visceral past experiences with economic uncertainty. It makes perfect sense to him.
And this principle isn't just limited to how we save or invest. It even applies to what might seem like much smaller financial decisions. Let's look at lottery ticket buyers, for instance. Studies consistently show that households with lower incomes tend to spend significantly more on lottery tickets than higher income households. This happens even when these individuals might struggle desperately to cover an unexpected, say, $400 emergency. Now, from a purely rational mathematical standpoint, this seems utterly counterintuitive, perhaps even irresponsible. However, for someone trapped in deep financial struggle, barely making ends meet, that tiny, tiny chance of a massive win might be perceived as the only visible way out of their seemingly insurmountable situation. In their context, given their limited options, buying that ticket becomes a reasonable choice, maybe a desperate grasp at a glimmer of hope that others, from a different perspective, might simply not understand.
That really makes you pause and reflect on your own journey, doesn't it? What about your experiences, you, the listener? Did you grow up during a period of economic stability or perhaps one of profound instability, like maybe your grandparents experienced during the Great Depression? Or maybe you saw vastly different market performances during your formative years, shaping your earliest impressions of money. Those early observations, those financial imprints, can profoundly shape your willingness to take risks today, how you perceive financial opportunities, and even your underlying sense of financial security.
And this leads us directly to a crucial psychological concept: money scripts. These are essentially deeply ingrained beliefs and attitudes about money that we form often unconsciously during childhood. They act like internal blueprints or, unwritten rules that guide our financial behavior throughout life. We can categorize them into a few common types. You have money avoidance scripts, where people view money negatively or feel they don't deserve it. This often leads to financial denial or maybe excessive risk aversion. They just don't want to deal with it. Then there's money worship, where money is seen as the solution to all problems, leading to a relentless pursuit of wealth above all else, sometimes at the expense of relationships or well-being. There are also money status scripts, linking self-worth directly to net worth, driving a desire to impress others with visible material possessions. And finally, money vigilance. This is a cautious, even anxious approach, leading to diligent saving, but sometimes an overly cautious or restrictive approach to spending, even when it's truly needed or could bring joy. Understanding your own money scripts is vital because they are the hidden drivers behind nearly every financial decision you make.
So it's not just about what you logically know, but what you emotionally believe based on your unique story. That's a really powerful point. And this whole discussion about our personal lenses brings us seamlessly into our next idea: luck and risk. Beyond effort alone, it highlights that success and failure in financial outcomes are often significantly influenced by luck and risk. not just individual effort or skill, and that people consistently underestimate the profound roles these forces play.
It's absolutely true. Every outcome in life, whether we like to admit it or not, is guided by these two powerful, intertwined, and often, well, capricious forces. We have a very human tendency, it's known as attribution bias, to attribute our successes entirely to our personal skills, our diligent hard work, our brilliant decisions. Meanwhile, we often blame our failures on external factors, bad luck, or the actions of others. We conveniently overlook the inherent risks we took in the first place, or maybe the fortuitous circumstances that happened to propel us forward. The truth is, the line between what's perceived as inspiringly bold and foolishly risky is often razor thin, and usually it's only visible with the crystal clarity of hindsight. It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It really is. I think about those startup stories we hear all the time, where one seems to just explode with success and another struggles for years, despite both teams putting in equally Herculean efforts. Take Sarah and John, for instance, both pouring their lives into their respective startups. Sarah's business absolutely thrives, not just because she's brilliant, but because a sudden, unexpected market demand for her specific product just appears out of nowhere. That's a huge stroke of luck.
Right place, right time.
Exactly. Meanwhile, John's business, equally innovative, maybe even more so, struggles and eventually fails due to unforeseen regulatory changes that cripple his entire industry. Pure, unadulterated risk coming to bear. Both worked incredibly hard, but those external, uncontrollable factors, luck and risk, played a massive role in their wildly divergent outcomes.
And this extends far beyond just entrepreneurs. Even the most brilliant minds can point to the profound influence of luck. Take Bill Gates, for instance. His genius is undeniable, truly revolutionary. But he himself acknowledges a significant stroke of luck. He was fortunate enough to attend one of the very few high schools in 1968 that actually had a computer. That early, rare access gave him an unparalleled, formative head start that most of his peers simply didn't have. Contrast that with, say, his equally skilled friend, Kent Evans, who tragically died in a mountain climbing accident in his late teens. It's a somber but undeniably clear illustration of how random chance, the brutal role of risk and luck, can create two utterly different life trajectories for individuals of comparable talent, effort, and ambition.
Wow, that really drives home the message, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So, practically speaking, what does this understanding of luck and risk mean for us, for you listening, as we navigate our own financial journeys?
It means we should cultivate an incredible sense of humility when judging outcomes, both our own and others. We should be wary of hypo-focusing on specific individual success stories and trying to meticulously replicate them step by step. Don't try to invest exactly like Warren Buffett, for instance, because he can't replicate his unique circumstances, his specific era of market growth, or his personal network. It's just not possible. Instead, focus on broader, robust principles and approaches that have a proven track record for larger groups of people. Recognize that unpredictable elements of luck and risk will always be an undeniable part of the game. This approach helps us counteract what we call survivorship bias, where we tend to only study the winners and forget the multitude of failures or the sheer risks that were involved in their journey. It's about playing the odds, not betting on a lottery ticket, essentially.
That's excellent advice. Focus on broad principles, not just individual hero stories, and definitely be humble. This whole discussion about our subconscious influences and primal wiring brings us to another fascinating foundational insight: the dual brain. System 1, impulsive, versus System 2, logical. It's the core idea that our minds operate with these two distinct cognitive systems, and our financial wellness really hinges on understanding and, more importantly, managing this inherent duality.
Indeed. Let's circle back to our caveman with a credit card analogy for a second. That impulsive, fast, intuitive part of our brain, always seeking immediate gratification and those sweet dopamine hits from acquiring resources, is what Daniel Kahneman termed System 1. It's our caveman brain, essentially. Always on, always ready for quick action, operating on instinct. Then we have System 2, our logical, slow, deliberate planner brain. This system is responsible for rational thought, for exercising willpower, for long-term planning, and for carefully weighing consequences. It's the one we wish was always in charge of our money. But the reality is System 1 is incredibly powerful and often takes the wheel.
And the impact of this duality on our financial decisions is profound, even insidious sometimes. Think about when your System 2, your financial willpower, is most vulnerable. It's typically when you're tired, stressed, hungry, or profoundly distracted. In those moments, your System 2 becomes ego-depleted, as the research calls it. It's like a muscle that's been overused and is simply too tired to function effectively. This is precisely why retailers are so incredibly clever about placing those irresistible, impulsive buys right at the checkout counter. After an hour of making deliberate System 2 decisions about what groceries to buy, your willpower is shot, and the impulsive System 1 screams, yes, that candy bar, or those sparkly keychains, and it's a quick victory for the caveman.
You've identified a critical battleground there. Understanding this duality is truly your superpower in the realm of personal finance. The goal isn't to try and completely erase those impulsive System 1 urges, as we discussed. That's probably a losing battle against our ancient wiring. Instead, it's about creating environments and systems where your logical System 2 can make the big, overarching decisions in advance. You set up automated rules and simple financial firewalls, we'll call them, that prevent your impulsive System 1 from even having the opportunity to sabotage those well-intentioned plans later on. It's about designing your financial life to work with your human nature, not in constant, exhausting opposition to it. It's about being smarter than your caveman self, not trying to eliminate him entirely.
It's all about understanding yourself to set yourself up for success. And with that understanding, let's shift our focus from why we sometimes trip up to how we can actually build and sustain wealth. And we absolutely have to start with one of the most powerful yet consistently underestimated forces in finance: compounding, time as the magic factor. The extraordinary power of compounding is so often misunderstood because its exponential effects simply require significant time to become truly, visibly magnificent.
That's spot on. Our brains are actually quite bad at exponential thinking. We're fundamentally wired for linear growth. Physicist Albert Bartlett famously observed that the greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function. This means we often look at small, consistent returns and think, that's not going to move the needle much, completely failing to grasp how they can lead to mind-boggling outcomes over long periods. Compounding doesn't just add, it multiplies on previous gains, leading to an explosive, almost magical growth that feels counterintuitive until you witness its power in action. It's the quiet miracle of wealth building.
It really is incredible how that works. Let's take Jane, for example. If she starts investing just $200 a month at age 25, consistently, and achieves an average annual return of 7%, she could have around $500,000 by the time she's 65. That's a comfortable nest egg.
Pretty good, yeah.
But if she waits just 10 years and starts at age 35, contributing the exact same amount with the same returns, she'll only have about $240,000 by 65. That single extra decade, that consistent, uninterrupted compounding nearly doubles her retirement savings. It truly is the magic factor, and it's kind of hiding in plain sight.
And the ultimate, most vivid illustration of this is Warren Buffett himself. While his skill as an investor is legendary, truly unparalleled, a staggering $81.5 billion of his $84.5 billion net worth came after his 65th birthday. His secret wasn't just being a brilliant investor, it was being a brilliant investor for decades and decades, allowing time and consistent compounding to do the heavy lifting. You can see this pattern in nature too, tiny rivers carving Grand Canyons over millennia, or computer storage increasing from megabytes to terabytes. Feels slow at first, then suddenly explosively powerful.
That example of Buffett and his age really makes the point hit home. It also brings up a fascinating psychological principle: time discounting. What exactly is that, and how does it affect us here?
Time discounting is our inherent tendency to prefer a smaller reward now over a larger reward later. We inherently devalue future benefits. This makes us consistently underestimate the incredible long-term advantages of compounding. We struggle to visualize a distant future where those small, consistent efforts become enormous because our brains are wired for immediate gratification, for those berries now, not the entire orchard years down the line. It's why saving feels hard sometimes, even though we know it's so beneficial.
And so for anyone listening, what's the practical reflection from all of this? How do we leverage this magic factor?
The practical reflection here is so crucial, it should probably be emblazoned on every financial planner's wall. The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily. Good investing isn't really about chasing the highest, most thrilling returns, which are often fleeting and usually come with disproportionate risk. It's about earning good, not necessarily the absolute best returns that you can stick with for the longest possible period. Consistency trumps brilliance in this game long term. In many cases, the most powerful financial advice can be distilled down to just 3 words: shut up and wait. Allow time, that magic factor, to work its extraordinary magic.
Shut up and wait. I love that. It really simplifies something that often feels so complex and requires so much active doing.
And that leads us to our next big idea, a subtle but utterly critical distinction. Getting wealthy versus staying wealthy, different games. The skills required to accumulate wealth are often completely different from those needed to preserve it. This is a profound insight that I see overlooked constantly. Getting rich often involves a degree of optimism, a willingness to take calculated risks, maybe starting a business, making bold early investments in new, unproven technologies, perhaps even cryptocurrencies back in the day. It's about seizing opportunities and sometimes being aggressive. But staying rich, that's a completely different game altogether. It demands prudence, discipline, a significant margin of safety, and a profound humility to acknowledge the role that luck and external factors undoubtedly played in your initial success. The mindset must fundamentally shift from maximizing returns to maximizing survival. It's a transition from playing offense, trying to score big, to playing defense, protecting what you've built.
We see this play out in so many real-world examples, both in people we know and in public figures. Think about Tom, an entrepreneur who builds a multi-million-dollar business through years of aggressive growth, taking big risks, innovating constantly. He absolutely earned his success. But after selling his company, he doesn't try to replicate that high-risk strategy. Instead, he wisely invests a significant portion of that hard-earned wealth into a highly diversified, lower-risk portfolio. His goal isn't to get richer at a rapid breakneck pace, it's to preserve his wealth and ensure it continues to grow steadily, safely for his family's future. It's a different game with different rules.
And then there are the stark, almost unbelievable contrasts that really drive this point home. Consider the stories of Mike Tyson and Ronald Reed. Mike Tyson, a boxing legend, earned over $400 million in his career, an astronomical sum, yet he eventually lost everything due to undisciplined spending and poor financial management. Just gone. On the other hand, Ronald Reed, a janitor and gas station attendant from Vermont who drove a secondhand car and wore old clothes, quietly saved and invested in blue-chip stocks for decades. When he died at 92, he left a staggering $8 million to charity. He didn't have a high income or formal financial education, but he absolutely mastered the art of staying wealthy through consistent, disciplined behavior. This is further highlighted by the case of Richard Fuscone, a Harvard-educated investment banker who, despite every financial advantage and credential, declared bankruptcy after losing everything during the 2008 crisis. These stories just scream that formal education and high income don't guarantee financial stability without the right behavior. It's truly a different game.
Wow, that's a powerful and frankly quite sobering lesson. Mike Tyson versus Ronald Reed is like a modern parable for our times. So, for the listener, what's the most critical practical reflection here?
The practical reflection here is that avoiding the one mistake that wipes you out is paramount. Accept calculated risks to get ahead, absolutely, but then, once you have that wealth, shift your priority to long-term survival and consistency. This also links back to survivorship bias, remember, where we often focus only on the successful outcomes and overlook the multitude of failures or the sheer risks that were taken to get there. Staying wealthy requires recognizing and mitigating risks that might not be immediately visible, understanding that many who took similar risks didn't make it. It's about playing defense to keep your score, not just offense to get ahead.
That's a great segue into our next point because it really challenges how we often perceive wealth. Wealth is what you don't see, beyond status symbols. The core idea here is that true wealth is actually invisible. It's the assets, the savings, the financial security you possess that haven't been converted into visible material possessions. It's the income not spent, pure and simple.
It's such a crucial distinction because we live in a world that constantly, relentlessly encourages us to judge wealth by what we see, the flashy cars, the expansive homes, the exotic vacations paraded on social media, the curated Instagram feeds. But this, I assure you, is often an illusion. Wealth, in fact, is what you don't see. It's like a fully charged battery, pure potential energy, waiting to be deployed for future needs, opportunities, or simply peace of mind. Rich is income, often spent to be seen. Wealth is income not spent. It's the quiet strength beneath the surface.
That Ferrari paradox from our sources always sticks with me. If you see someone driving a brand new $200,000 car, the only concrete data point you truly have is that they now have $200,000 less than they did before. Or, even more commonly, they're leasing it, which tells you nothing about their actual net worth or if they're even making their payments. This desire to signal wealth, rather than truly possess it, is everywhere. There's even a growing business of people renting private jets on the tarmac for 10 minutes just to take a selfie for social media. They want the appearance, not the actual tangible asset or the freedom it represents.
And the reality in many modern societies is stark. Nearly 70% of Americans, including many high earners, live paycheck to paycheck. This happens because they fundamentally confuse high income with actual wealth and spend everything they earn, sometimes even more, chasing visible status symbols instead of building unseen financial security. They're playing a losing game of keeping up appearances.
So if true wealth is what we don't see, what's the practical takeaway for us? How do we internalize that?
Focus on buying back your time, your freedom, and your peace through diligent savings and smart, consistent investments, rather than constantly chasing admiration with material possessions. As it's often shrewdly observed, no one is impressed with your possessions as much as you are. True wealth offers options and security. Visible spending often depletes it, turning potential into fleeting displays.
That's a powerful reframe, shifting our focus from external validation to internal security. And it leads directly into our next principle: save money, the power of control. This idea emphasizes that your personal savings rate is a more significant determinant of wealth building than your income level or even your investment returns, precisely because it's almost entirely within your control.
Precisely. In a world brimming with unpredictable market forces, economic fluctuations, and even income instability, our personal savings rate stands out as a beacon of empowerment. We have virtually 100% control over how much we choose to save, irrespective of our income bracket. This act of saving, consistently and intentionally, provides unparalleled flexibility, security, and the ability to seize opportunities when they arise, rather than being at the mercy of external circumstances. It's where your power truly lies.
This is where that comparison from our sources really shines. Take Tom, for instance. If he earns $5,000 a month and decides to save just 2% of his income, that's $100 per month. That's a guaranteed increase in his wealth, completely within his control, independent of market whims. Now, compare that to someone trying to achieve an extra 2% return on a $5,000 investment portfolio. That might also yield $100 over a year, but it's entirely subject to the unpredictable whims of the market, requiring specific investment savvy and maybe a fair bit of luck. Tom's consistent, controllable savings provide a much more reliable, less stressful path to wealth building. It's a fundamental difference.
This vividly illustrates the locus of control's psychological principle. Actively saving money provides a profound sense of security and empowerment, as it's a direct action within one's power rather than relying on external, unpredictable investment returns. The key insight here is often described as the gap between your income and your ego. The less you feel compelled to spend money on impressing others with material things, the more you naturally save. And here's another crucial point. Saving doesn't always need a specific, immediate goal. It's about building options, creating a buffer for the unexpected, and ultimately buying freedom. It's a safety net, a launch pad, and a peace of mind fund all rolled into one.
So it's about building a solid, controllable foundation, not just chasing elusive, optimized returns. That ties beautifully into our final principle in this section: reasonable, rational. Financial strategies you can stick with. This core idea suggests that opting for financially reasonable strategies, those that genuinely align with your personal well-being and emotional comfort, are often far more sustainable in the long term than rigidly pursuing mathematically optimal choices.
This is a critical nuance that behavioral economics tirelessly champions. A purely rational financial decision might look absolutely perfect on a spreadsheet, maximizing every penny, minimizing every cost, squeezing out every last basis point of return. But if that decision is impossible to stick with psychologically due to the immense stress, discomfort, or excessive sacrifice it demands, then it's ultimately a failing strategy. True financial wellness requires factoring in your heart and your emotional comfort as much as your mind and the cold, hard math. It's about finding your sustainable sweet spot.
Anna's mortgage situation is a perfect example of this. Anna chooses to pay off her $200,000 mortgage early. Now, if you look at the numbers purely rationally, investing that money in the stock market might technically yield a higher return over the long run, even after taxes.
Mathematically, maybe?
Right. But for Anna, the immense peace of mind, the profound sense of security and freedom that comes from being completely debt-free is far more valuable to her than a potentially higher but uncertain investment return. For her and her peace of mind, it's a perfectly reasonable, sustainable decision, even if it's not what a computer model would recommend as optimal.
And this taps directly into the concept of bounded rationality, which suggests that people make decisions within the limits of the information they have, their cognitive abilities, and the time available. A reasonable decision, even if not mathematically optimal, is one that is sustainable, aligns with personal well-being, and ensures emotional comfort. The ultimate goal for you, the listener, is to manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night. Prioritize that emotional comfort and long-term adherence over short-term, unsustainable optimization. A strategy you can consistently follow is always superior to a perfect strategy you abandon at the first sign of trouble.
That sense of peaceful sleep is priceless, isn't it? It means you're prepared for whatever life throws your way. And speaking of which, life is absolutely full of curveballs. Our first principle in this next section is surprise and room for error, expecting the unexpected. The core idea here is that the future is inherently unpredictable, and history, while valuable for context, is often a poor guide for truly novel, significant events. Therefore, building a margin of safety or room for error into your financial plans is absolutely crucial for resilience.
That's a profound truth that too many people learn the hard way. We often fall victim to what I like to call the historians as prophets fallacy, where we rely too heavily on past data to forecast future events with certainty. This isn't necessarily a failure of analysis, it's often a failure of imagination. The most impactful events, those truly transformative moments that reshape economies and markets, are frequently unprecedented. Nobody saw them coming because they hadn't happened before in precisely that way. The economy and markets are full of surprises, and assuming a smooth, predictable path is a dangerously naive gamble.
We saw this incredibly vividly, didn't we, with the 2007 housing crisis? Many investors at the time genuinely believed that housing prices simply could not fall nationwide. They were anchored to the recent past, where real estate always seemed to go up. But then the 2008 crash hit, catching those heavily invested in real estate completely off guard, often wiping out their savings. Those who had diversified portfolios, who had built in some room for error and hadn't gone all in on one asset, were far better positioned to weather that storm and ultimately recover.
Another fascinating, albeit less financially direct example of this human tendency is the widespread fear that gripped people after 9/11. News headlines and many experts predicted an imminent, catastrophic wave of terrorist attacks on American soil. There were even literal news segments pitching emergency parachutes for office workers to keep under their desks in case they needed to jump from skyscrapers.
I remember that.
Right. It shows a clear tendency to extrapolate recent dramatic events into the near future and then catastrophically overestimate their impact. It's a potent combination of normalcy bias, believing things will continue as they have, and recency bias, placing far too much emphasis on freshest, most vivid memories.
So when we're planning our finances, what's the practical application for us, for the listener, when the world is clearly so unpredictable? How do we build that room for error?
Always assume things won't go according to your perfectly laid plans. The wisdom of the purpose of the margin of safety is to render the forecast unnecessary is key here. This buffer isn't just financial, like having an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months living expenses, though that's crucial. It's also mental and physical. Can you cope psychologically with a 30% decline in your assets? Many spreadsheets might say, yes, you can technically still pay your bills, but the mental and emotional toll, the sheer investor exhaustion, can be immense and lead to poor decisions. Building this holistic room for error, a financial, mental, and emotional cushion, is what allows you to survive long enough for your long-term strategies to pay off. It gives you the space to breathe and think rather than panic.
That makes so much sense because it's not just the external world that changes. We ourselves change too, often in ways we can't predict. Our next principle is you'll change. Flexible plans for evolving goals. The core idea here is that people's goals, desires, and even their core personalities change significantly over time, making rigid, long-term financial planning incredibly difficult, if not impossible. Therefore, our financial plans absolutely must be flexible.
This is a truth we constantly overlook, primarily because of what psychologists cleverly call the end of history illusion. We tend to believe we've changed profoundly in the past, but we'll change very little, if at all, in the future. We think our current self is our final self. Yet the data tells a profoundly different story. For instance, only about 27% of people end up using their college degree in a career directly relevant to their major. Our priorities, our deepest values, what brings us joy and purpose, these can drastically shift across decades or even just a few years.
I can certainly relate to this. I'm sure you, the listener, can too. Think about Laura's shifting priorities from the outline. At 25, her absolute financial goal was aggressive early retirement and world travel. She was all about maximum growth and taking risks. But by 35, with 2 young children, her focus had completely shifted. Now, her deepest desire was securing their education and adopting a far more conservative investment strategy to protect that capital. She wisely adjusted her financial plan because she changed, and her deepest desires and responsibilities evolved. Her 25-year-old self could never have predicted her 35-year-old self's priorities.
The practical reflection here is crucial. Avoid extreme, inflexible financial plans. Endurance is key. If a plan is too rigid, it's brittle, and it will inevitably break as life throws its unpredictable challenges and as you inevitably change. Be open to changing your mind and your path. And critically, recognize and avoid the insidious sunk cost fallacy, that tendency to stubbornly anchor decisions to past efforts or investments that can't be refunded, even if your goal has completely changed and the original path no longer serves you. Our financial plans need to be dynamic, capable of catering to our future, evolving selves, not just enshrining the desires of our past selves.
Play your own game. That's the essence of our next point, you, me. Understanding your own financial game. The core idea is that different individuals are genuinely playing different financial games based on their unique goals, timelines, and risk tolerance. It's absolutely crucial to understand your own financial identity and avoid being influenced by others who are playing a fundamentally different game.
This is vital, especially in our hyper-connected, social media-driven world. Few things matter more with money than understanding your own time horizon. Comparing yourself to others, a phenomenon known as social comparison theory, can be incredibly detrimental when their games, say, day trading with a very short time horizon and high-risk tolerance, is fundamentally different from yours, which might be long-term investing for retirement over 30 years with a focus on stability. Their rules, their volatility, their metrics of success simply don't apply to you, and trying to emulate them will likely lead to frustration and probably losses.
Let's illustrate this with Rachel and her brother again. Rachel is diligently investing for her child's college education, which is about 10 years away. So her strategy appropriately focuses on lower risk bonds and stable, predictable growth to meet that definite deadline.
Makes sense for her goal.
Right? Her brother, on the other hand, is investing for his retirement, which is 30 years in the future, allowing him to comfortably opt for a more aggressive stock portfolio, riding out market fluctuations. Their strategies are perfectly appropriate for their different time horizons and goals. Rachel shouldn't feel pressured to adopt her brother's aggressive strategy because her financial game is entirely different from his. What works for him would be reckless for her.
You saw this clearly illustrated historically with something like Cisco stock during the dot-com boom of 1999. Short-term traders focused on daily price movements, looking to flip shares for quick gains based on momentum. Long-term investors, however, had entirely different objectives, viewing the company through a lens of decades, not days, focusing on fundamental growth. These were fundamentally different games being played on the same field by different players with different rule books and different ultimate goals.
So practically speaking, in a world full of conflicting financial advice and social media flexes, how do we navigate this to stay true to our own path? How do we play our own game?
Take the time to genuinely write down your own financial mission, your specific goals, and your precise time horizon. This active definition creates a powerful filter for external noise and helps ground your decisions. And critically, question who you take financial advice from. Ensure their game and their objectives align with yours. Otherwise, their advice, however well-intentioned, might be counterproductive to your own unique journey. Social identity theory tells us we often define ourselves by the groups we associate with, so avoiding the trap of unconsciously following other strategies that don't suit your needs is paramount. You are unique, and your financial game should reflect that.
Okay, we've covered so much about our inner workings and external influences. Now let's talk about a pervasive force in the financial world that often leads us astray, the seduction of pessimism. The long-term optimist challenge. The core idea here is that pessimism often sounds smarter, more realistic, and frankly more captivating than optimism, even though long-term optimism about economic growth has historically been far more accurate.
This is a classic example of negativity bias at play, and it's a powerful one. Bad news simply sells better than good news. It grabs our attention. Prophets of doom are often taken more seriously, seen as profound sages who understand the harsh realities of the world, while forecasters of optimism can sound naive, unrealistic, or simply like salespeople trying to push a product. Threats feel more urgent, they demand immediate action, run, sell, hide, whereas opportunities often call for patience and consistency, which feels less dramatic. It's an asymmetric pull, and pessimism is often the louder, more compelling voice.
We saw this so clearly during the 2008 financial crisis, didn't we? Many investors, absolutely gripped by fear and pessimism, fueled by the relentless daily headlines, sold their stocks at significant losses, essentially locking in those losses at the very bottom of the market.
The worst possible time.
Exactly. However, those who managed to stay invested in the market, who continued their regular contributions despite the pervasive gloom, saw their portfolios not only recover but grow substantially. The S&P 500, for instance, more than tripled in value in the decade following that crisis. It's a powerful, real-world testament to the eventual triumph of long-term optimism over short-term fear.
And there are several compelling reasons why pessimism is so seductive. Firstly, money is ubiquitous. Bad news about the economy or markets tends to affect everyone, making it feel personally relevant and urgent. Secondly, pessimism often calls for immediate decisive action, run, sell, hide, which feels more empowering and active than optimism's call for patience, which can feel passive or even complacent. Lastly, the finance industry's long and unfortunate history of scams and hucksters can make genuine, rational optimism seem naive, leading people to err on the side of caution and distrust. It's a powerful cocktail of factors.
So for the listener, how do we counteract this seductive pull of negativity and stay on track with our long-term goals?
Remember that optimism is believing that the odds will fall in your favor over time, despite occasional setbacks along the way. Don't let short-term pessimism, however captivating or loud it may be, derail your well-thought-out long-term plans. History consistently shows us that the world, despite its inevitable crises and challenges, tends to get better over time, driven by human ingenuity and resilience, and economic growth is a powerful, persistent force. Maintain that patient, rational optimism. It's often the most profitable stance in the long run.
That was a truly fantastic tour through the deeper psychological drivers of our financial decisions. Now let's turn our attention to some practical, actionable takeaways. We'll start by tackling some pervasive, sticky ideas, money myths to debunk. There are so many financial truths floating around that are actually myths, and they can severely hinder our financial progress. We want to challenge some common misconceptions and offer evidence-based perspectives to help you see things more clearly.
It's absolutely crucial to separate fact from fiction because these deeply held myths can lead to suboptimal, even damaging financial decisions. We're constantly bombarded with financial advice from all directions, and not all of it, even from well-meaning sources, serves our best interests. Let's clear the air on a few big ones.
All right, let's dive in. Myth number 1. Many people believe debit is always better than credit. Is that truly the case?
Not always, and that's a crucial distinction. While debit cards are great for preventing debt and only spending what you have, credit cards offer significant benefits when used responsibly. That's the key phrase. They provide valuable rewards like cashback or travel points. They build crucial credit history, which is absolutely vital for future mortgages, car loans, or even renting an apartment. And they often come with purchase protection for big-ticket items. The key, and this is non-negotiable, is low balances and timely full payments. If you can manage that, credit can be a powerful financial tool, not just a trap.
That's a great clarification. How about myth number 2? Buy a home at all costs. This feels like deeply ingrained advice in our culture, almost like a rite of passage.
It truly is, but it's not a universal truth for everyone. Homeownership certainly offers a sense of stability and the potential for equity building, but it also comes with substantial responsibilities, unpredictable maintenance costs, property taxes, and a definite lack of flexibility. For many people, particularly those who move frequently for work or simply prefer not to deal with repairs and upkeep, renting can be a more flexible, less stressful, and in some markets, actually a far more financially prudent choice. It's not an ideal for everyone. Your lifestyle and goals should dictate that decision.
What about myth number 3? Investing is only for the rich. I hear this one a lot, and it can feel very disempowering for people just starting out or with lower incomes.
Absolutely false, and it's a dangerous myth that keeps too many people from building wealth over time. Anyone with even a small amount of savings can start investing. Options like short-term certificates of deposit, individual retirement accounts, IRAs, which have low minimums, or the stock market via accessible, low-cost index funds and exchange-traded funds, ETFs, are readily available to almost everyone. A smart, consistent investment strategy, regardless of initial capital, is key to achieving financial independence. You don't need a huge lump sum to begin the journey.
Moving on to myth number 4. My partner manages the finances, so I don't need to know about money. This one makes me a bit nervous.
It should make you nervous because it creates a huge financial vulnerability. Every adult in a household should be fully aware of the family's finances and capable of managing them, even if one person typically takes the lead day to day. In emergencies like job loss, illness, or unfortunately divorce, both partners need to understand income, expenses, investments, and debts to maintain stability and make informed decisions. It's about shared responsibility, transparency, and preparedness for any of life's unexpected turns. Financial literacy is for everyone.
Myth number 5. Credit cards will get me through any financial crisis. I imagine this is a common, maybe desperate thought for some.
It's a dangerous thought and a really dangerous myth. Relying on credit cards during a financial crisis is usually a fast track to deep, suffocating debt due to their incredibly high interest rates and fees. A dedicated emergency fund covering 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses is the essential proactive measure for unexpected events. That fund gives you options and breathing room, not high-interest liabilities that compound the problem.
Myth number 6. I'm too young to think about retirement. This is probably the most costly myth to believe for young people, isn't it?
You are absolutely right. This is perhaps the most insidious and costly myth to believe, especially for young people. Thanks to the incredible power of compounding we discussed earlier, the younger you start saving for retirement, the less you actually need to contribute monthly to reach truly significant sums later on. Maxing out 401ks if available, or opening and contributing to IRAs early in your career is incredibly important for building a comfortable, secure future. Time is your greatest financial asset here. Don't waste it.
And finally, myth number 7. I have enough money. I don't need to budget. This seems almost counterintuitive, but I know it's a common trap for higher earners.
It really is a trap. Budgeting is for everyone, regardless of income level. Without a budget or at least some kind of spending plan, even high earners can spend their way into debt or simply not know where their money is actually going. It's not about restriction. It's a powerful tool for conscious decision-making. It helps you track spending, identify areas for adjustment, and ensure your money is allocated deliberately, aligning with your values and your most important financial goals. It's about control and intentionality, not deprivation.
Those are some critical myths debunked. Now let's revisit and expand on something we touched on earlier, because it's so foundational to why we sometimes stray from our best intentions. Behavioral biases impacting investing decisions. Our innate biases, both cognitive and those mental shortcuts in thinking and emotional, profoundly impact our investment choices. Understanding them is truly the first step to overcoming them, or at least mitigating their influence.
It's absolutely vital to recognize that even when humans have all the facts, we are deeply prone to making mistakes because it's incredibly difficult to remove emotions and personal perspectives from decision-making, especially when money is involved and stakes feel high. These biases are not flaws, really. They're inherent parts of our human operating system, but they can definitely lead to suboptimal market decisions if we're not aware of them.
And one of the most common and, frankly, often ego-driven is overconfidence bias. What is it, and how does it subtly, or maybe not so subtly, show up in investing?
Overconfidence bias is that tendency for us to have a misleadingly positive assessment of ourselves, a belief, often rooted in ego, that we're better, smarter, or more skilled than we actually are, especially compared to others. In investing, this looks like investors believing they can consistently outperform the market through their own superior research and active trading. Maybe they had 1 or 2 lucky picks early on. However, the data tells a very different and quite sobering story. Year after year, the vast majority of actively managed mutual funds fail to outperform simple, low-cost market index funds over the long term. For example, in 2023, only about a quarter outperformed over the previous 10 years. That's a clear indication that individual stock picking or frequent trading, often driven by overconfidence, usually underperforms just buying and holding the market.
That's a sobering statistic that really challenges that inner voice telling us we're smarter than the market average. So how can we practically counter that overconfidence?
Well, a great solution is to deliberately seek input from objective financial advisors who can offer a much-needed outside perspective, free from your personal biases and emotional attachments. Also, carefully analyzing the past performance of your own investment decisions, critically and honestly, can provide invaluable feedback. Did you really beat the market, or did you just get lucky during a bull run? Another powerful technique is a pre-mortem exercise. Imagine your investment strategy 10 or 15 years in the future and envision all the ways it could have failed. This helps you logically evaluate potential pitfalls and adjust your strategy proactively rather than reactively after the damage is already done.
Next up, we have recency bias, which I think we all experience in daily life. But how does it manifest financially? Where do we see it trip people up?
Recency bias is the tendency to place too much emphasis on experiences that are freshest in our memory, even if they aren't necessarily the most relevant or reliable for long-term decisions. A prime example is what happened after the 2008 financial crisis. Many investors, understandably haunted by the fresh, painful memories of market collapse, exited the stock market completely, expecting continued hardship. They let that recent fear dictate their actions. As a result, they miss the subsequent recovery where the market bounced back significantly in the following years. Their fresh, painful memories overrode decades of historical trends showing market resilience and eventual growth. It's about not letting the latest headline or the most recent downturn dictate your entire long-term plan.
And then there's loss aversion, which I know Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky studied extensively. This one feels deeply primal, almost visceral.
It truly is primal. Kahneman and Tversky found that the psychological impact of a loss is roughly twice as powerful as the pleasure of an equivalent gain. Ouch factor is double the yay factor. This asymmetric aversion means we feel the pain of losing money far more acutely than the joy of gaining an equal amount. This can lead to overly cautious decisions, especially during market downturns, when sometimes the best strategy is actually to stay the course, or even counterintuitively invest more when prices are low. Loss aversion can paralyze us with fear, or worse, push us to sell at the worst possible moment, locking in losses just to stop the emotional pain.
And finally, we often see herd behavior in markets where everyone seems to rush towards the same thing or away from it all at once.
Herd behavior is exactly that. The tendency for individuals to follow the actions of a larger group, often abandoning their own individual beliefs, research, or what makes sense for their unique situation just because everyone else is doing it. This is frequently observed in market bubbles, where everyone piles into a hot asset like tech stocks in '99 or housing in '06, inflating its value beyond reason, or in panics where everyone rushes to sell, crashing prices. It can amplify market fluctuations and lead to irrational decisions driven purely by social proof and fear of missing out, FOMO, rather than fundamental value. It's the absolute opposite of playing your own game.
So the bottom line with all these biases, it's a lot to navigate. It feels like our brains are kind of working against us sometimes.
It is a lot. The bottom line is that humans, even armed with all the facts and figures, will still make mistakes due to emotions and personal perspectives. It's part of being human. Understanding these cognitive and emotional biases is the crucial first step toward developing sound, rational, and importantly, sustainable investment strategies. Professional financial advice can deliver significant added value here by helping you identify and mitigate these unconscious biases, ensuring your decisions are aligned with your long-term goals, not just your immediate emotional reactions. It's like having a calm, objective co-pilot who understands the weather patterns of your own mind and can help you navigate through the turbulence.
That brings us to a more serious topic, but one that's increasingly recognized as a vital component of financial wellness: understanding money disorders. The core idea here is that problematic financial beliefs and behaviors, often stemming from deep-seated financial stress or an inability to utilize resources effectively, can cause significant distress and hinder overall well-being. These are increasingly referred to as money disorders or disordered money behaviors.
Yes, this is a critical area to discuss, though it needs sensitivity. While these aren't yet formal clinical diagnoses in the big manuals like the DSM or ICD, these enduring patterns of self-destructive financial behaviors are increasingly recognized by therapists and financial professionals as chronic stressors with profound psychological bases. They often represent an unconscious attempt to cope with underlying emotional pain, anxiety, or perhaps past trauma, leading to considerable anguish and disruption in a person's life and relationships. They are not merely poor choices, they often represent deep-seated patterns that feel very difficult to break.
And these disorders, they often circle back to those money scripts we talked about earlier, don't they? Those childhood imprints seem to be at the root of so much.
They absolutely do. Money scripts, those deeply ingrained beliefs formed in childhood, powerfully shape our perceptions and decisions about money, often leading directly into disordered behaviors later in life. For example, money avoidance scripts, where individuals regard money negatively or feel undeserving, can lead to financial denial, like literally not opening bills, passively ignoring financial responsibilities, or even excessive risk aversion, where they avoid any kind of investment out of fear or discomfort. Money worship scripts drive the belief that money solves all problems, prioritizing wealth above everything else. This can often lead to an insatiable desire for more, workaholism, or a constant feeling that enough is never enough, regardless of actual wealth. And money vigilance scripts, while often fostering diligent saving, which sounds good, can also lead to an overly cautious, anxious, and overly restrictive approach to money management, hindering enjoyment or necessary spending, creating constant anxiety around money.
Beyond these individual scripts, you also mentioned relational money disorders, which sound incredibly complex and damaging within partnerships. Can you elaborate on those?
Certainly. These affect the financial dynamics within relationships and can be incredibly damaging to trust and intimacy. Financial infidelity describes secretive financial activities within a relationship. Things like hidden debts, undisclosed bank accounts, or secret spending habits. This fundamentally erodes trust and can destabilize the entire relationship when discovered. Financial enabling occurs when one partner, sometimes unknowingly but often knowingly, supports or encourages another's unhealthy financial habits, like constantly bailing them out of debt. This hinders their partner's ability to take responsibility and learn healthy behaviors. And financial dependency arises when one person relies on another for financial support to an extent that creates an unhealthy power imbalance, potentially fostering resentment, limiting the dependent partner's autonomy, and making it hard for them to leave, even if the relationship is unhealthy.
Now, what about some specific, more visible manifestations of these disorders? Things we might recognize more readily in ourselves or perhaps in others around us?
Well, we see clear manifestations in behaviors like hoarding, where individuals have extreme difficulty letting go of money or possessions, often beyond what's reasonable. This leads to financial clutter, disorganization, and sometimes a profound sense of insecurity about future scarcity, even if they have sufficient resources. And then there's compulsive spending, often called shopping addiction. This is characterized by irresistible, excessive, and impulsive spending that results in mounting debt, significant emotional anguish, and deep regret, despite the adverse financial consequences. It's a cycle that feels completely out of control for the person experiencing it.
That sounds incredibly distressing. What are the symptoms someone might notice if they suspect they or someone they care about might be struggling with this? And importantly, what kind of treatment or support is actually available?
The symptoms often include intense feelings of shame, profound secrecy around financial matters, hiding purchases, lying about debt, and a persistent inability to make lasting changes, even when individuals intellectually recognize their problematic behaviors. There's often a feeling of being stuck in a loop they can't escape. Treatment often involves a multifaceted approach, as these issues are complex. Financial therapy is a growing field that combines the expertise of financial planners and mental health therapists to provide comprehensive care addressing both the practical money skills and the underlying psychological drivers. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is often very effective in helping individuals identify and challenge the negative thought patterns and core beliefs that fuel the disordered behaviors. Financial counseling provides practical guidance on budgeting, debt management strategies, and building healthier habits. Debt management programs can help create structured repayment plans for those overwhelmed by debt. Crucially, financial education, family therapy, especially for relational issues, and readily available self-help resources like books, support groups, and podcasts like this one are all vital components in the journey towards genuine financial well-being. The most important first step is often simply acknowledging the struggle without judgment and reaching out for professional help. There is support available.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about being proactive and setting yourself up for success, recognizing these patterns, building better habits, and getting help when needed. Which brings us to our final topic today, and perhaps the most empowering: practical solutions. Building your financial firewalls. It's not about becoming a fundamentally different person overnight, which is probably impossible. It's about creating simple, effective financial firewalls, tangible barriers between your impulsive self, System 1, and your bank account to support your best intentions, System 2.
This is truly where we bridge the gap between understanding why we behave a certain way and implementing actionable strategies to change the outcomes. It's an admission of how our minds actually work, rather than how we wish they would, and then designing systems around that reality. These firewalls empower our logical System 2 to make the critical decisions ahead of time and prevent our impulsive System 1 from derailing them with those quick, fleeting dopamine hits. It's about being strategic with ourselves, not just trying harder through sheer willpower, which often fails.
My absolute favorite practical antidote, one that almost everyone can implement immediately, is the 24-hour rule. It's so simple, yet so surprisingly effective.
The 24-hour rule is a powerful weapon against impulse spending, and it leverages that System 1, System 2 dynamic beautifully. It's incredibly simple. For any non-essential purchase over a set amount, say $50 or maybe $100, whatever feels right for your budget, you must wait 24 hours before you actually buy it. Put it in your online shopping cart, add it to a wish list, write it down on a physical list, whatever you need to do. But you cannot click buy or make the purchase immediately. This simple delay disrupts System 1's immediate impulse, want it now, and allows your logical System 2 to engage. It gives you crucial time to evaluate if it's truly a need, a genuine desire that aligns with your values, or just a fleeting want triggered by an ad or emotion that will likely pass. Often, after 24 hours, the urge is gone.
Another incredibly effective, almost magical firewall is to automate savings. This one feels like cheating the system in a good way.
It absolutely does, and it's perhaps one of the single most impactful things you can do for your financial future, hands down. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to a separate savings or investment account every single payday, or maybe the day after. Treat it exactly like a non-negotiable bill. Pay your future self first before you even have a chance to spend it. The caveman part of your brain simply can't spend money. It never even sees in its main spending account. I had a friend who started small, just $5 a week. It felt almost insignificant, but it built the habit. Within a year, it was $50 a week, and he had thousands saved for the very first time in his life. It's the habit that matters most, not just the initial amount. Start small, build momentum.
And a cornerstone of any resilient financial plan, a true non-negotiable safety net, is the emergency fund. We mentioned it before, but it bears repeating.
Absolutely. A robust emergency fund, ideally covering 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses, rent, mortgage, food, utilities, transportation, is a critical buffer against life's inevitable surprises. Job loss, medical bills, car repairs. It provides options, incredible freedom, and profound peace of mind. A job loss doesn't necessarily mean financial ruin. A bad boss doesn't own you because you have the flexibility to leave if needed. This fund allows you to make decisions from a place of strength and thoughtful consideration, not desperation and panic. It's your personal financial oxygen mask. Put it on first.
And to keep all this organized, to make conscious decisions about where your money actually goes, we really do need some form of budgeting.
Budgeting is essential for everyone, regardless of income. Again, it's not a straitjacket, it's simply a map for your money. Tools like the 50-20-30 rule, aiming for 50% of after-tax income for needs, 20% for savings and debt repayment, and 30% for wants, can provide a helpful starting framework. But any system that helps you track income and expenses works. Budgeting helps you identify areas for conscious cuts or adjustments and allocate your money deliberately towards things you value. It's about making informed choices and ensuring your spending genuinely aligns with your financial goals and deepest values, rather than just drifting along.
Finally, for those looking to grow their money, beyond just saving it, we have smart investing. What's that look like practically?
For beginners, or really anyone who wants a solid, low-stress approach that avoids many behavioral pitfalls, consider diversified, low-cost index funds or exchange-traded funds, ETFs, instead of trying to pick individual winning stocks. This approach offers broad market exposure and instant diversification, significantly reducing the risk associated with any single company doing poorly. Understand your time horizon. Are you investing for retirement in 30 years or a house down payment in time? This dictates your risk tolerance. And crucially, avoid active trading based on headlines or emotions. Frequent buying and selling often leads to costly mistakes driven by fear, greed, overconfidence, and short-term market noise. The goal is long-term, consistent growth through patience. Remember, shut up and wait. That often applies here too.
What an incredible deep dive today. We've really peeled back so many crucial layers, exploring how our minds and emotions truly interact with our money, far beyond just the numbers on a screen.
Indeed. We've established pretty clearly, I think, that effective money management is primarily behavioral. It's psychological, not just about mathematical equations or complex spreadsheets. We've learned that no one's truly crazy when it comes to money. Our unique personal experiences profoundly shape our financial worldviews in ways that make sense to us, even if not to others. We also discussed how luck and risk play significant, humbling roles, reminding us to approach outcomes, both good and bad, with a healthy dose of humility.
And we can't forget the incredible, almost confounding power of compounding, emphasizing patience and consistency as perhaps our greatest allies in wealth building. We reaffirmed that true wealth is often unseen. It's the money not spent reminding us to prioritize saving and financial security over chasing external status symbols. And choosing reasonable, sustainable strategies that you can actually stick with long-term, rather than purely rational but psychologically impossible ones, is absolutely key to long-term financial success and peace of mind.
We also covered the vital importance of expecting surprises and building in a margin of safety, that room for error for life's inevitable curveballs. Our goals will change as we ourselves evolve, underscoring the need for flexible, adaptable financial plans, not rigid doctrines. It's also absolutely vital to understand your own unique financial game, your goals, your timeline, your risk tolerance, and fiercely avoid being swayed by others who are playing entirely different ones. And finally, learning to resist the seductive pull of pessimism, maintaining a steady long-term optimism about progress and growth, despite the scary headlines.
We challenge those common money myths that can really hold us back, explore the powerful behavioral biases that often trip up even the smartest investors, and shed some light on money disorders, stressing the importance of seeking help without shame if problematic patterns emerge. Most importantly, hopefully, we've armed you with practical tools to empower your financial journey, simple firewalls like the 24-hour rule, and automating savings that you can literally implement right away today.
It's crucial to reiterate that financial wellness is fundamentally a behavioral challenge, but with genuine self-awareness and simple, consistent steps, it's entirely achievable for anyone. You absolutely have the power within you to take control of your financial destiny, to move from that Sunday night dread we talked about to a quiet sense of calm and control over time.
And that leads me to our call to action for you, the listener. I encourage you to commit to just one practical step this week, just one small thing. Will you try the 24-hour rule on your next non-essential purchase temptation? Or maybe set up an automatic transfer of even a small amount, say $10 or $20 from your checking to a separate savings account. Even a tiny step can create monumental change over time by building that habit. We genuinely love to hear from you. Find us on our social channels or in the comments section wherever you're listening. And tell us, share the one financial habit you'd like to change or implement this week and why. There's incredible power in making that commitment public and joining a community of people who are on the same journey with you. By sharing your intention, you might just inspire someone else to take their very first empowering step too.
And as you go about your week, here's where it gets really interesting. Maybe something to ponder on your commute or while you're walking the dog. You don't truly win the money game by simply out-earning everyone around you or having the most stuff. You truly win by designing a life that's authentically yours, a life that aligns with your deepest values and brings you genuine contentment. So ask yourself this: am I endlessly chasing more? Or am I thoughtfully building a life that actually feels rich to me regardless of the price tag?
Thank you so much for your time and your trust today. This has been The Deep Dive. If this deep dive resonated with you, please consider sharing it with a friend, family member, or colleague who might benefit from hearing it. Until next time, be kind to yourself and be kind to your money.